the length of the conducting substance so just in physical principles, what's going to have more resistance to the flow of electricity? If the cable's this long, or if it's this long? Well, this long, right? It has less resistance. So which one, if you're going to flow electricity over longer distances, in order to overcome that resistance, you need more what? More driving force. You need to counter that somehow. Now let's translate that to the body. Which would have more resistance? An axon that's long or an axon that's short?
That's long.
More resistance? Long. The long axon is more resistant. So what is it harder to do? It's logical. What's it harder to do? Flow electricity over short distances or long distances?
Long distances.
Long distance. Common sense, right? So that would mean that if I had an axon that was really long like this, I would probably want to do something to it to lower what?
Resistance.
The resistance. Now I can do two things to lower resistance. I can change the diameter of the wire. So in physics, wires that have a large diameter, they're fatter, right, have lower resistance. Wires that have a smaller diameter, thinner, have a higher resistance. Right? And that's exactly how, what's his name, Edison discovered the light bulb, right? He took a filament, a wire, and stretched it incredibly thin. And when he stretched it incredibly thin, but yet it didn't break, and you flowed electricity through it, where it was the thinnest, it had the most resistance. And resistance generates heat. And when wires heat up, they do what? Glow. And that's how these old filament light bulbs, that's how they work, is because of that. So these axons I have in my body, well, actually let's think about it like this. If I'm going to carry electricity within this room, it's going to take a wire of a particular gauge, right? But if I wanted to carry electricity from here all the way to the other side of Pasadena, my wire is going to have to be what? Bigger. A lot bigger, right? That's why these big high wire electrical things that are carrying electricity over large distances, you ever seen one of those? Man, they're huge. Okay. And again, that's just to make it easier to get the electricity to go. They don't glow at night, right? We have that. Now in my body, what do you think has a larger diameter to the axon? An interneuron or a somatic motor neuron controlling my gastrocnemius muscle?
Somatic.
I forgot just what I said. Which one's wider? Which one's a greater diameter?
The second one.
Yeah, whatever. I forgot what I said already. But the longer it's got to go, right, the fatter it's going to be. Logical because of physical principles, right? Okay, so that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is doing this. Not painting it green, but putting something that doesn't conduct electricity around what you want to conduct electricity. We call it insulation. So why is it that electricity flows rapidly through this wire? Is because I have surrounded it by something that doesn't like to conduct electricity, so that forces all the electrical current to stay in the wire. It also protects me from getting shocked. But that's one reason. But the other reason is to make it go where I want it to go. So which do you think we should put insulation in? Axons that have to carry information over long distances or short distances?
Long distances.
Long distances, right? And remember from anatomy, we have cells whose job it is to insulate axons. And in the peripheral nervous system, they're called Schwann cells. In the central nervous system, they're called oligodendrocytes. They produce myelin, which is a lipoprotein, like rubber, right? That is a very poor conductor of electricity. So where does the electrical signal want to stay? In the axon. Right? So it's the structure-function kind of thing. Those things are related to the way they look, the reason they look the way they look is because of what they have to do. They have to get a signal over a long distance or something like that. All right, so that's what we're going to be looking at when we look at these things. I mean, obviously, the longer I distance, I would expect A nerve like my sciatic nerve, which goes from about right here, parts of it down to my big toe, is going to be a big fat nerve with a lot of insulation. And it is. Okay? Because it carries things over a long distance.